back again for question 3 in the Tauranga Girls College 2020 Derived Grade Exam Level 1 Genetics paper. This question was all about variation, and this is a common type of question in Level 1. And the context for us was hydrangea flowers. You've probably seen these flowers, although we didn't spring for colour photocopying. But when you see them around, they're kind of a nice big round bunch of flowers, often white, but sometimes blue or purple. And the context here is that there's two different kinds of variation. So we're looking at the colour of the flower, but also the fact that they can be single or double flowers. And the question asks us to explain the difference between inheritable and non-inheritable variation. So it says, discuss whether flower type and flower colour in hydrangeas can be passed on to a plant's offspring. And we have to talk about inheritable and non-inheritable variation and explain what causes this variation. So starting with inheritable variation arises when we have different alleles for a certain trait. So in this case, the inheritable variation is the single or double flowers. So there's obviously two different alleles, one for single flowers, one for double flowers, and depending on what a plant inherits, when the offspring is formed, we will get variation. Some will be single and some will be double. So depending on the combination of alleles, the offspring get, some will be double and some will be single. And this produces variation in flower type. However, colour is non-inheritable, and we've just figured that out from looking at the question, because the question says blue or pink flowers is determined by the pH of the soil that the shrubs are growing in. So it's non-inheritable as the environment produces the variation. And what we actually see is we're seeing variation in the phenotype, or what we observe, but not the genotype. Okay, so we have to change the genotype to get variation that's inheritable. Now we could possibly link this to mutation, but since we've already had a question on that, and we are just talking about something that we know, obviously there's two different alleles for, I don't think that mutation is what they're after in this question. Now I know some of you Year 11s and Level 1 students will be a little bit confused by this, but I think you'll probably start to get the hang of it the further into this course we go. So have we discussed whether flower colour and flower type can be passed on? So therefore, flower type can be passed on in the alleles, or shall I say through chromosomes, unlike flower colour, which changes due to the environment, changes the phenotype, let's say, due to the environment. Okay, now let's go over here to the next part of the question. And this question is, hydrangea offspring can be produced asexually via cuttings or sexually via seeds. Discuss how sexual reproduction causes variation and how this can benefit the plant. In your answer, you should define sexual reproduction, explain how one important process helps to produce variation, and explain how variation can benefit. Note that even though the question talks about asexually and bolds it, we're not actually required to compare or contrast sexual and asexual. So you don't really need to put that into your answer here. So sexual reproduction is where we combine the DNA from two different parents to make a unique offspring. Okay, so that's the first bullet point. I would like to always start with the one important process is just random fertilization. That's the key one. So random fertilization is a key process. So a random sperm or male gamete fertilizes a random female gamete to give a unique zygote or offspring. Okay, so that's the first way we're getting variation. So even from the same two parents, siblings will look different because the sperm and egg or the male and female gametes are totally random, and we've got millions and millions of different types of gametes that one person can produce. But I know that lots of us like to talk about meiosis, so let's just go a bit further here. So meiosis is cell division to produce gametes with half the number of chromosomes. So we've already set up here that these gametes can be quite different. So in meiosis, one individual can produce millions of different gametes. And in this part here, you could go ahead and talk about independent assortment. But if you do this, you must make sure you're getting it right. If you're not sure, please don't do it, because you really will negate your good answer. Independent assortment is during meiosis, our homologous pairs of chromosomes. Now, resist the urge to talk about 46 and 23 because we're talking about hydrangeas, not people. During meiosis, homologous pairs line up randomly. And so each gamete has a unique combination of chromosomes. Okay. And the other one that people like to talk about is crossing over. And that is where in meiosis, it's a process that occurs in meiosis, the inner arms of homologous, I'm going to say replicated homologous pairs exchange small sections of DNA. And this exchange results in gametes with unique combinations of alleles. So notice the difference here. We've got unique combinations of chromosomes for our independent assortment and alleles for our crossing over. Now that's only half the question. So if you look up here, we have definitely done that, but that's just your little achieved opportunity. We've done that, that's going to be a pretty good answer, but we haven't explained how variation can benefit plant populations over generations. So let's just go over the page and have a go at that. So the benefit of variation, hold on, let me just adjust my camera here, is that if variation means if we get a change in the environment, and we can talk about disease, drought, etc. Some individuals will be better suited to survive that change. So what I don't want people to say is that some individuals will adapt to that environmental change or change. Individuals cannot change. Individuals cannot adapt. Remember, if it got, let's say a disease came, to humans, and some people had better immune systems. You can't just say, immune system, I want you to be better, so adapt to that. It is just that in a large population with variation, some individuals will just naturally be better suited. And that's what you need to get across there. So some individuals are better suited. So these better suited individuals survive. And when they survive, they then breed. And that means they pass on their successful alleles. Successful alleles being the alleles that led to them being able to survive. And over time, these successful alleles can become more frequent in a population. Present, I didn't like how I said that, can become present in a higher frequency or at a higher frequency. What I'm trying to say is that there will be more of them in the population. So we want to say something about over time, because it did ask us in the question about generations, and that implies over time. Okay, I think we're done here. So that's the end of the genetics exam. I hope this has been helpful. 10 HDS, pretty proud of you lot. You did a great job in this exam, and I'll catch you soon. Bye.